Hey, Ms. Vaughn. So this is my child growth articles. I'm sick right now. That's why I'm going to sniffle a lot, just so you know. Okay, so the first article is a risk of divorce in parents of children with developmental disabilities. Basically the summary of this article is there was a study done at parents. There was a certain number of parents, and they had kids without disabilities, and there's a certain number of parents that had kids with disabilities. They did the study. They figured out, okay, divorce is more common in parents that don't have children, that don't have disabilities, whereas in parents that have children with disabilities, they don't divorce as often. So that's basically what the summary is, and then it went on and told how it went about and all that. The critique was that the article was very interesting. It was pretty okay to understand. There was a couple of parts that was kind of confusing in the first beginning when they had like the abstract, reading that and then going in the background. It kind of contradicted itself, but at the end, when you read the whole thing, it makes more sense. So that's my critique. It just kind of contradicted itself a little bit, but it wasn't that bad. Okay, so the next one is examining the effects of activity education with coordination on the development of balance and arm power in 6-year-old primary school children. This one basically was another study. Basically, these kids were studied. There was a group of 5 to 6-year-olds. There was 30 of them, and they were studied for 2 weeks for 2 hours a day about their balance. There was 4 different tests that they could do, and each one had different things that interacted with their balance, and they were timed on how long they could hold their balance. Sometimes it was 30 seconds. One time it was a minute long. They did that for two times a day, for 2 hours a day, for 2 weeks. And then they came up with their results, and they were talking about how, what's good for the child to be, active in school, and how their balance and coordination helps them with their school studies and all that. The article was easy to understand. The only problem readers would have, I think, would be the graphs. The graphs were kind of confusing, and I feel like unless you are used to graphs that way, the reader's not going to be prepared for the graphs. They're not going to understand the graphs as well. The writers did a good job on their research. They did a good job with getting a good number of students and doing, they conducted the research with 4 different things. They correlated each of the activities. They did it for 2 weeks. They did it for 2 hours a day. So they got enough hours and enough time in, I felt like. The next one is teaching math with SEN, which is special needs, education needs, a good practice examples. And what this is just a study that promotes different examples of good practice in order to help teachers and other educators with helping the children who have special education needs. So this just gives you better examples on how to help them, and gives you all the statistics on how many kids have this. And they did 28 researches, and this happened in 3 countries on 73 students in the different levels of education. So you had preschool, you had elementary, you had secondary, you had high school, you had all of the education, you had all kinds of grades, you had all kinds of different students, and in different countries where everything is different anyway. So I thought that was really cool. They really expanded their horizons, and they really broadened their horizons. They didn't just stick to a small town. They actually expanded out, and they branched out. The critique on this, the article was easy to understand. They did a good job defining the keywords, and if there were some words that the readers might not have understood, the article did make sure to have plenty of context clues, which I thought was awesome for the readers, because not everyone's going to understand the articles, especially if you're not into education, you're not an education major. There were a few words that were not defined, like I said, that were a little difficult to understand. The article was clearly written. It was very organized. There was headings on each page. So that really brought the whole paper together, because there was headings, and it was easy to go, oh, I know this. The next one is virtual reality-based behavior learning for autistic children. This just talks about the benefits of virtual reality for autistic children. It talks about, first off, it defines autistic children, what they go through, how they learn, how they see things, and it just gives you a broad spectrum of autism. For readers who don't know what autism is, that's a great thing. For a person who does know it, that's also a great thing, because it gives you another opinion on it. It basically goes over the benefits of virtual reality. It goes over how it could help that child. It goes over the different it goes over the different scenarios in there, how the child can customize their virtual reality, how they can change the dimensions and see it in all kinds of different ways. So that's it's a really cool article about how it goes in with. I can't get this page to go, Miss Vaughn. All right, the article, I don't even know if that was 4 or 5 articles, Miss Vaughn. Holy cannoli. Okay, so the next article, not the next article, I'm sorry. This article was very easy to understand. The writers kept the vocab down to a reasonable amount. There were no big words that the reader couldn't understand or that the reader couldn't figure out what that word meant. Again, context clues. I think a lot of these articles, that's what it's mainly about, is the context clues. That way you know what the word's meaning, you know what this is meaning, you can kind of refer to what it is. The article was interesting, was informative, and it was interesting for readers who personally know someone with autism, because this is great ways to help. And it's also interesting for people who don't know anybody with autism, but again, it's also a great way to help. It did provide some charts, some data in there that people are going to find interesting. And then the next, I guess, a final article, this is my 5th article. It says, learning to read, suggestions for teachers and educators regarding dyslexic children. Again, the first thing in this article right off the bat, it's going to define dyslexia. If the reader does not know what it is, they're going to know what it is by the end of this article. I'm sorry. Dyslexia, it goes and it shows the different types of dyslexia, how it's not just, normally I think when a person hears the word dyslexia, they just think of, oh, they just get the words mixed up. Well, it's also letters, it's numbers, it's addition and subtraction signs. It's not just, oh, they get the words mixed up. It's all of the technical stuff that helps them get that word mixed up is what it really is. And for someone that doesn't know, someone with dyslexia, they don't know what dyslexia is at all, they kind of think that it's not that big of a deal. But it really is, because if you confuse a 6 and a 9 all the time, that's really gonna hurt you in the long run. So it focuses to help out some guidelines for teachers and educators that work with dyslexic children. There's, the basic guidelines that you have, but this also goes into depth with having, oh, I didn't realize it was going to do that. There's a hair. It also goes into depth with other ways to help students, not students, it helps, let me just redo that. If I could edit, Ms. Vaughn, I would totally edit this video. Okay, so the article helps go in depth more with different ways and different steps and different guidelines to help the teachers and educators help these students that have dyslexia. There's a lot of helps in there, I know. But it also, the study lasted for 2 years. They made games. They had different types of games that would help the student. They had educational games. They had just normal games. They had, they had a lot of different ways, and they documented their information in charts. This article was very easy to understand. The article was a short article, but it still met the criteria. It was still a 3-page article, but it was very short. There was not a lot of big words. There was not a lot of stuff that's like, I think the only biggest word was dyslexia, if someone didn't know what that was. But again, like I said, it defined it. The vocab in the article was not difficult. The reader would not have a hard time understanding anything in the article. The article was clearly written. The writer made sure to break everything down. They had headings on everything. It included a chart on the last page to make sure the reader understood what they were talking about in that previous paragraph, and it really broke things down. The chart might be a little hard for some readers to understand, but it really did break everything down when it came to what they did in the previous paragraph, and when it came to, okay, well, we did this game, and then we did this game, and then we did this game, and this is how many, so it broke it down really well for some of the readers. The readers can really appreciate the writers for making sure to take the time and really show caring for the children who suffer from dyslexia. I thought it was really awesome that the writers of this spent so much time and so much research and dedication into actually doing this and doing the work. So I thought that was very great. Again, that was my 5 articles on the online standards or whatever, towards the bottom, it's highlighted and it says the video has to be 10 minutes long and it has to cover 5 articles. So that's my 5 articles. And hey, this is actually 10 minutes this time, Miss Vaughn. Normally it's like 15 minutes. But okay, Miss Vaughn, I hope you have a wonderful day. And thank you for reading or watching my articles. Thank you. Bye.